What's going on, everyone? It's Mike. It's John back again, and thought we'd do something a little bit different today. Talk about some of the other stuff that's going on around Everton. We always talk about the games, but international breaks always a bit quiet. And we were looking at the players that are out of contract. There's been quite a big thing on Twitter about it. There's also something else I want to talk about as well. But John, I wanted to get your take on the fact that there is so many players out of contract in the summer.
Is it 12, is it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've got a list of the players there, Michael. We are going to go through them, and then we're going to talk about who we would offer probably another 12-month contract to, and one who we would be happy to see go. But a lot depends on when the freaking group come in. I think we are just a little bit still tied with financial restraints for January. But then I think from next summer, I think you'll see a whole new ball game of the way Everton are allowed to spend money. Let's not piss it up against the wall like we have under Managerial. Let's be careful how we spend it and not get in the situation that we found ourselves, which inadvertently give us the 2 points deductions. I think there could possibly be 1 or 2 points deduction hanging over us still, something to do with stadium costs. But whoever the director of football is and whoever the manager is, come the summer transfer window next season, it's got a big job on their hands. And they've got to do it right, and they've got to spend the money that is available well. Personally, I don't think Sean Dyche will be here. I think we've said that many times on here. But I also think Kevin Thelwell may still be part of Everton Football Club come summer next year. I've got a feeling the freaking group may keep him on. They're looking at coaching staff, and they're looking at obviously the board, what boards we've got, and the football side of it in general. And obviously they're going to look at Kevin Thelwell and the job he's done with his hands tied, because let's make no bones about it. You know, he's done some really good signings, Kevin Thelwell. He's done some poor signings as well, but I think we're all in agreement that his hands have been tied. So it's going to be interesting what the freaking group make of the job Kevin Thelwell done. And personally, I wouldn't be bothered if he went or stayed. But whoever the director of football and manager are, have got to spend the money wisely, as I said, and not waste it, and not bring players in who are the wrong side of, 25, 26, because we've done that too much in the past, Michael. I think now with this freaking group coming in, I think they're going to look at the footballing side in general, and I think they're going to start trying to bring players in. We've spoke about it on here, running it like a business, and players who will have a sell-on value, young players who will have a sell-on value, because you look at some of the top clubs who do that, and they get good money for players that they've hardly spent out on. They've had a very, very good scouting system. Brighton are a perfect example. If Everton want to go down the line of being successful, but having players who have got a sell-on value, they need to get the scouting department right and the director of football right. And they've only got to look at Brighton Football Club to do that, because they've done amazing.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's difficult, really, because although you're probably a little bit more relaxed about FFP for next season when we go into the stadium, I actually still think we might have to sell an asset to comply, especially when we're going to have to bring in so many players. So I still think we're going to have to sell some. I wanted to go through some of the names of the players that are out of contract, and equally the loans, where you might want to consider keeping them or selling them, or yeah. So we'll start with the goalkeepers. So Virginia and Begovic contracts are both up.
I never got bringing Begovic back. I think Virginia, he's proved he's a fairly capable understudy. I don't think he's a number one, but I think when he has been used in the Everton side, whether it be if Pickford's been out, very rare Pickford's out injured, but when he has been in the cup games, I think he's proved himself that, he is a capable understudy. I'd have no problem keeping Virginia, giving him another 12-month contract. I'm pushing Pickford. I'm not saying he's going to push Pickford for the number one spot, because if you look what Pickford's done for Everton the last couple of seasons, single-handedly in certain games, he's won the 3 points for us. He's been fantastic for England. I think he's got, is he equal to most clean sheets now or something, or he's not far behind Gordon Banks or something. So, listen, we've said on here, Pickford can be erratic. His kicking could be better. But for an understudy, I would give Virginia a 12-month contract, see how he goes. I do think Begovic goes, to be fair. I don't get why we brought him back when Virginia was there as a capable understudy, as I say. So Begovic, we let go. We don't renew and give Virginia a 12-month contract.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Virginia because, we went out on loan last season. I think it was Sporting Lisbon. And he played well. He had a good time. And I actually thought they might sign him this season. And obviously, a lot of things have changed at Sporting Lisbon. They've recently lost their manager to Man United. But he's clearly a talented goalkeeper. He's clearly a goalkeeper that has got a bit about him. The only thing I would say is he's no longer young. So we talk about understudies.
He's younger than Begovic, though, isn't he?
Well, he's younger than Begovic, but it's whether. My point is, it's whether he wants to stay. It's whether he wants to sign a new deal. And I think if you've had the opportunity to play regularly, and he probably could have done it again this season, getting a loan somewhere, then it wouldn't surprise me if we see that he goes anyway, even if we offer him a new contract. But yeah, I get and agree with what you're saying. I wouldn't offer him a 12-month contract, though. I'd offer him a 4 or 5 year contract. No, there's no point having a goalkeeper like that and just giving him 12 months, for me personally. Going to the right back position, both Ashley Young and Seamus Coleman, both out of contract. Young is 39.
Yeah. I think the freaking group are going to have a big say on what Ashley Young does. Personally, I think he's been good this season. He hasn't been by far the worst player that we've had in the team this season. And I think when he's come in at right back and left back, Michael, I think he's done a job for us. He hasn't looked like a 39-year-old in most games. Don't get me wrong, he's not going to play every week. But I do think he's come in and done a capable job when he's being asked to do it. You're not going to get week in, week out from him. He's 39 years of age. I think the freaking group will probably try and step away from these older players now, offering them contracts. So I don't see Ashley Young getting a contract, personally. Seamus Coleman is another one. Again, he's not going to play every week. We all know that. He's starting to pick up injuries and little niggles and little knocks now. But I think Seamus Coleman will be kept on at the club and be put on the coaching staff. Depends on who the manager is who comes in. Because we've got Patterson there, and we've said here on a few times, Michael, that Patterson needed someone with an older head to help him along a bit, give him a bit of coaching, and look after him in training and get his positioning right. The only problem you've got, I think we've got a manager there who doesn't really rate Patterson. Have we seen enough of him? I don't think we have. What I have seen, I don't rate him much either. I think the Premier League's too much of a big step up for him. So the right back is a big problem position for us, which we've said on here many times. So I think Coleman goes on the coaching staff, and I do think they do let Ashley Young go.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And I agree with that. I think they might give Coleman another a 12-month deal for a transition into a coach. Yeah. But yeah, I think if it's not this season or next season, it'll be one of the two. So yeah. Then we move into ones that we may actually feel. Michael Keane. Now, I can't believe I'm saying that based on the last 4 years or 3 years prior to this season. But I don't think he'll get a new contract. But I do think there is still a Premier League player in Michael Keane. a lower Premier League team, but I do think there is a Premier League player with Michael Keane.
Well, what you're saying there at the minute, we're a lower Premier League team, aren't we? But with the takeover coming, and I know we keep going on about this takeover and the freaking group, but he's going to have a big say, excuse me, in these players, whether they stay or whether they go. Michael Keane, for me, has been better than Tarkowski this season. But you've got to look at the bigger picture, Michael. If we want to push on as a club now, with the new ground coming and new owners, possibly a new manager coming in, and wanting to push up the league a bit and stop all the mediocrity that we've put up with, we can't just give Michael Keane another contract on the basis of 11 games this season, in my opinion. So if you look at the bigger overall picture, personally, I wouldn't give him another contract.
No. Would you try and move him on in January?
It depends if we can bring anyone in, because if Sean Dyche is still a manager in January, he's not going to give Jake O'Brien a go. It does look like he's fell out with Branthwaite. I think this is all stemmed from with Branthwaite, the joke and slap he gave him on pre-season. I think it's stemmed from that he's not playing Branthwaite. And maybe I'm wrong with saying that, but we all know that Branthwaite has been on that bench now for the best part of 3 weeks to a month, and he hasn't played him. And I know he come back from England duty with a little niggle, but has he got that little niggle, Michael? Because again, he's training them too hard and he's not getting game time. Has he got another niggle because of that? So I don't think he's going to play Jake O'Brien. So I don't think Michael Keane goes in January, the answer to your question. I think he does stay until the end of his contract, because you can't just throw Jake O'Brien into a situation that we're in now. You've got Tarkowski, who's been playing since the beginning of the season with an injury. So I do think we keep him till the end of his contract. I don't think he goes in January. But again, I wouldn't give him another contract.
Fair enough. I think for me, Michael Keane's an interesting one because it was obvious when he brought Branthwaite in for the West Ham game that he was worried about losing control of this situation, because the fans were calling for changes. A lot of fans were calling for better. A lot of fans were calling for Tarkowski to be dropped. And he sort of stuck to his guns, rightly or wrongly. And for me, it's wrongly. But
so since he's been at the club, though, hasn't he, Michael? This manager, he's done that since he's been at the club.
He's too stubborn at times. He's too stubborn, and I think as long as Sean Dyche is there, Michael Keane will have a place at Everton. It will be when another manager comes in, and if he fancies him. And I think Michael Keane might be relieved to go at this point. But
I think Michael Keane's capable of, as you say, going to another club in the Premier League. And again, I'll go back to what you said before and what I also said. You mentioned a lower Premier League side. Unfortunately, Everton are one of them at the minute. So where does he go at a lower level Premier League club side? Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton, and have the worry of relegation hanging over his head if he goes there, if they do manage to stay up this season. Does he go?
Sorry, John. The player that he reminds me of, and which is why I think he could have almost a second heyday, is Johnny Evans. He reminds me of Johnny Evans. Didn't quite make it at Man United. Ends up going to teams like, West Brom, for example. Has a really, really good time at West Brom. Becomes this name again. Everyone's raving about him. I think did he end up at Leicester? Do I remember? Was it Leicester? He ended up, wherever he ended up. And he's now at Man United playing games. Now, it just wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying Michael Keane is going to be at Man United in 5 years' time. I'm not saying that, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone unlocks what Michael Keane is good at. And all of a sudden, then he comes back. This Michael Keane that we saw when we first, Michael Keane, when we first signed him, was fantastic. We were talking about England squads. We were talking about, how he was brilliant. We were talking about him being a starter for England, if I remember. And it all just disintegrated. So for me, I do believe there is a player in Michael Keane. I just don't think we've seen it for a long, long time.
I think it was well documented that Michael Keane went through a phase of suffering mentally. He did suffer mentally. He was suffering with personal problems off the pitch, and rightly or wrongly, and this isn't digging out Everton fans because I was one of them. You might have been one of them, where we were calling for Michael Keane to be taken out the team when he was having poor games. Now, I think Michael Keane comes across as the sort of player as, if he starts getting that feedback off the fans, as well as suffering psychologically on and off the pitch, I think he's the sort of player. I don't think he's a very strong player in the head, Michael Keane. So I think things like that affect him. So when it's affecting him, and I think it affects his football as well, and I think that's where it started to curtail for Michael Keane.
Speaking on then, Doucoure.
Personally, I'd let him go. I think he's been poor this season for me.
Agreed.
If you look at 18 months ago, Michael, when he was playing in that number 10 role, we were singing his praises, and we actually said on here, one, Dominic Calvert-Lewin plays better when Doucoure plays, and two, how much did we miss him? I think we went through a run of games when Doucoure wasn't playing, but we were struggling to pick up any points, and then he come back and we started picking up points again when we were fighting relegation. So we have seen the good of Doucoure, but I think this season we've seen the really, really poor side of Doucoure. And for me, he's been that poor that he doesn't warrant getting another contract.
No. He was being linked with moves away in the summer. And I thought, right, we've given him this extension or whatever, this 1 year option. Then sell him. But we didn't. And then he started him, first game of the season after barely playing in pre-season. I thought, what are you doing? But yeah, for me, Doucoure would, he would go. Idrissa Gueye.
I've watched him this season, like we all have, and I watch him, and I think he does more running than most of the midfielders that we've got there. I think he finds time on the ball. He shows experience. He has got younger players around him now, the likes of Tim Ibrahim, when he was fit. Mangala, he was in the team. He played alongside him as well. Jimmy Garner's been there in the midfield. And he still does the most running for me in the midfield, week in, week out. He shows his experience. And I think when he doesn't play, we miss him. So I would have no problem giving Idrissa Gueye a contract extension, whether it be for another season, just because I think he's the sort of player. Because listen, we've got 12 players out of contract, as you quite rightly pointed out before, Michael. We can't be letting all our experienced players go and bringing in all these brand new faces and show them what it means to play for Everton Football Club, show them the ropes, let them get the feel of the training area and the training ground. He's one of them. It's a second stint at Everton. And for me, I still think he shows class on the ball. He shows class on the pitch as well. Experience. I'd have no problem giving another 12 months.
Yeah, I completely agree. At times, his distribution can be poor, his passing can be bad. But actually, this season, I've actually been really impressed with him this season. What I've seen of him, how he's played, when he's come onto the ball, he's commanding it. I've seen more skills from Garner this season than I think I've seen in ages, beating people and running down the left and the right wings. I mean, I couldn't believe I was watching him against, I think it was Bournemouth, or whoever it was. And he's there charging with the ball. I just think he is a Rolls Royce of a footballer, and he has never got the credit he deserves, because he had similar attributes to Kante, didn't he? Strong legs, constantly running, good high tackle percentages, and he was almost. They were almost a carbon copy of each other in terms of their ability. And for me, Kante got all the credit, but the Idrissa Gueye, for me, has been an absolutely sensational player for Everton in the 2 stints he's been there.
Just to back that up, do you know, we've done match reactions on here and we do the debrief, and most weeks we'll always pick 1 or 2 players out where you go, how awful was he? Was he playing? Didn't even know he was playing. I don't think we've ever been on here and said Idrissa Gueye had a bad game. I really don't think we've ever singled Gueye out and said, how poor was he? Was he playing? He went missing in the game. He didn't make himself available. He didn't do his best. He didn't come off with sweat on the shirt. We've never said that. And there's not many players at this football club that you could say that about. I don't think we've ever said a bad word about Idrissa Gueye on this channel.
Now, the only time I can tell you I think I've said something bad, and I can't remember the game, and it was in his first stint, and he came short for the ball, and someone behind him tackled him, ran through and scored. I can't remember the game, but I remember it happening. That is the one time I remember really going, you know, what are you doing? That was a bad. But mate, we've had players that you could do it every week for. So I'll take 1 or 2 in 8 years or whatever it works out to. So
yeah,
no, it's fine. And then we move on. We move on to our centre forward, Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
I'd sell him. I'll drive him there.
You say you'd sell him in January if you can.
If we can bring a replacement in January, get what money we can for him, because he can pre-sign for another club in January. He's out of contract, as you quite rightly say. I would have no problem trying to get. What would you get for him? What could Everton ask for him? 10 million? 5, 6 million?
5 million, something like that.
5 million. You know, he's out of contract at the end of the season. He's down tools. He doesn't want to be there. He hasn't got a smile on his face when he pulls that blue shirt on. He's not trying. And, you know, it's a carbon copy of Idrissa Gueye, Michael. What we've just said there. You mentioned the one time. I don't think I've ever slagged Idrissa Gueye off. Week in, week out now, we find ourselves going back to this centre forward, it's an absolute disgrace that he wears the number 9 for our football club. So if we can get 5 million for him in January and the freaking group are in, and we have got a bit of money to spend, then try and bring a centre forward in and just get him out the club, because he doesn't want to be there. And I've said on here time and time again, whether it be Branthwaite or whether it be Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if you don't want to be at the club, there's the door. And he's a perfect example of what I mean by that. The sooner he's out this club, the better.
Again, I don't disagree. I think he occasionally gets a bit of a hard time because he's not scoring, but I do think he can offer more. I think the way that Dyche plays him kills him as well. So it's almost like, I don't think he wants to be here because of Dyche. I don't think Dyche plays to his strengths particularly. But as a striker, you've got to want it. You've got to get into channels to want the ball. You've got to be screaming for it. And I must say, I can't remember the last time I've looked at Calvert-Lewin and gone, yeah, he's frustrated we haven't made that pass set, or he's frustrated we haven't made that. You never see it. So
you say that there, that he's not scored enough goals, but at the end of the day, Michael, he spoke that he's isolated on here and he looks isolated. But how many one-on-ones has he missed?
Well, yeah, 4.
And he's done it for years. He's done it for years. Now, I'm not being funny. If that was me or you, and week in, week out, we were missing one-on-one on chances, we know he's capable of scoring tap-ins. We know he's capable of scoring with his head. We've seen it at Villa when the ball come over. You know, proper centre-forward header. We went 1-0 up with it, I think it was. It's the one-on-ones. Now, if you're that poor and the arse falls out of you every time you're bearing down on goal, with only the goalkeeper to beat, and you're constantly fluffing them chances, then you work and work and work on it. He's not, because he hasn't improved in that side of his game, and I don't think he ever will. So again, if there's some money there and we can get a centre forward in just to get us over the line, you know, we're forgetting Brozier's back in full-time training now. Chimiti to come back. Chimiti probably won't be up to speed until towards probably the end of the season because of the injury he did have. But I'm telling you now, if Brozier can get up to speed and get up to speed quick, and Calvert-Lewin's missing chances, and Sean Dyche's arse has fallen off because he's worried about losing his job and not getting another contract, and he throws Brozier in, You get more off Brozier than what you get off Calvert-Lewin, and that's before I've even seen Brozier in an Everton shirt. I'll say that, because that's how much Calvert-Lewin is pissing me off.
I was going to talk about the loan signings, but I appreciate this video has gone on a bit. So I'm not actually going to talk about Brozier, because there's no point me answering it. It's not fair. But I am going to talk about Jack Harrison.
Yeah.
For me, I found it pointless re-signing him. And if anything, it's been completely echoed for two reasons. One, he's played in the wrong position. He is a left-footed left winger, and he played on the left for Leeds. So when we signed him and we said, I don't understand why we signed him, and I got absolutely tore a new one for saying he's a left winger, why have we signed him for the right? I sit here and I think
that's down to the manager, isn't it? Because obviously he's putting him on the right, not the left. But what I will say about Jack Harrison, it was a waste of a loan for me, whether he plays him on the right or plays him on the left. Doesn't give us enough. You know, he's definitely not the player he was at Leeds. Definitely not the player he was at Leeds. And I know he was getting played in the right position there, but I haven't seen enough from Jack Harrison to warrant a second loan, never mind giving him a full-time contract. One more, if you want to speak about Mangala.
I was going to talk about Lindstrom and Mangala, to be honest.
Go on. Yeah, go
on. Lindstrom?
Haven't seen enough, have we? I don't think he's being used enough. Being flashes. The Leicester first half, so we should have scored early on. He looked half decent there, but again, we've spoken about it on here. You don't see a good hour from Lindstrom. You see a good half, and that's it. So again,
sorry, John, I felt like I kept cutting you out there. Sorry, man. You know who he reminds me of?
Go on.
I'm going to murder this man. Dinya Billy Lectinoff.
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
I think Billy was better than him, to be fair. I'm just going to say.
Billy was better than him, yeah. But he reminds me of that sort of player, you know, long strides, fairly quick on the ball, not the most skillful. But the difference with Billy, as we know, is he had an absolute rifle of a shot.
Yeah,
we
I remember
that from Lindstrom.
Yeah, you know, we haven't seen it from Lindstrom. And again, that chance he had against Leicester, he should have put us 1-0 up in that game. It was harder to miss, in my opinion. Yeah. So I haven't seen enough from him to recall him and give him another contract.
And then the last one's Mangala. Fair to you, John. You've spoken quite highly of when we've discussed him.
Yeah, I prefer to see him in the team than Doucoure. I put it that way. I think we've seen enough from him. Listen, it's funny with Mangala because he's on loan from Lyon, and apparently Lyon have put all their players up for sale, every one of them. So the money that we may have had to pay for Mangala to get him full time has probably dropped in the transfer fee now. Whatever we can get him for, I would have no problem signing Oriol Mangala, whatever his name is. I've seen enough from him to say, yeah, I'd bring him full time.
Yeah, the Forest fans, and as we know Forest fan TV, they were raving about him. They loved him. They loved him at Forest.
You've seen flashes of him at Everton, what we see in a Forest.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of everything. You know, he's got a little bit of everything, bit of trickery, bit of pace, bit of skill. But he also will win the ball back. He'll challenge, he'll battle. I like him as well, I must say. And yeah, well, I agree with you. I'd sign him as well. Maybe not for 30 million. let's. But if it was 10, 15, 20, then yeah, probably.
To be honest, if Lyon have put all their players up for sale, mate, and they're in the situation they are, looking at relegation, and you know, the mess that John Text has put them in, I think we've dodged a bullet with him as well. Another one we've dodged a bullet with. I think you can probably get him for 10, 12 million. So 10 for 10, 12 million for Mangala all day. Knows the Premier League. Yeah, I'd have no problem bringing him in.
The other thing I wanted to mention, because another thing came out just before we did this video, and so Everton statistically have had the easiest 10 games of the season so far. So statistically, we've now got the worst 10 fixtures coming up next. Does this period save or kill Sean Dyche?
I think there's more chance it kills him. Listen, we went into the Southampton game and we went into the West Ham game saying we needed at least 4 points going into this run of fixtures. We've got Brentford. Granted, it's at home. I think it's them Man U or Wolves, Man U, whatever, which way round it is. Man U are going to have the new manager bounce. Wolves will just pick their first win up, and then you go into December. I think Wolves might be in December. So I've got the fixtures here. So we've Brentford at home, Man United away, Wolves at home on the 4th of December, and then it starts from the 7th onwards. Liverpool at home, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, City away. And then we've got high-flying Forest to finish the month off. I mean, for another video, how many points do we get there?
Mate, I'll tell you how many points we'll get. 4.
I'll tell you what, you're saying 3 more than me.
Yeah, I think we get a point against Brentford and 3 against Wolves, and that's it.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question, we'll put it this way, let's be honest about it. If we don't beat Brentford and we struggle against Wolves and then we go into that run of fixtures, Dyche will be gone by the transfer window opening. Because the freaking group will come in. And if we're on a poor run and they get the deal done with 2 games left, and that run is absolutely shocking, and there's 2 big games left, they'll pull the trigger after them 2 games, if not before. It wouldn't surprise me if what we're expecting, apart from Brentford and Wolves, from what we're expecting, it wouldn't surprise me if they come in and if we're in an awful run and we've been sucked right down there even further, they sack him before they've even seen manage Everton Football Club in the flesh.
Oh, did you hear what they did with their manager?
Well, they sacked him before he'd even got back to the dressing room, didn't he?
They sacked him between the pitch and the dressing room.
Yeah, mate, the ruthless. And this is what we said the other week on the video. And whether it's right, whether it's wrong, they've had 3 managers in 12 months, I think it is. Right? It's ruthless. They don't take no shit. And this is the problem we've got now. If you look at the managers we've had under Managerial, 1, he's just stuck with them because he's lost interest in the club, or 2, he didn't want to pay them off out of his own arse pocket. And we've got that situation now with Sean Dyche. When he went on a run last season and won 1 in 15, do you think the Freakins would have put up with 1 win in 15? Not a chance. He would have been gone after 1 win in 5, 6, the way they carry on. I have no problem with the way they're carrying on. Some fans mightn't like it. Some fans mightn't like change and say we've got to give managers time. But we give managers too long. We give managers too long. So for me, the way they act, sacking a manager from the dugout to the dressing room, I'm all over that. I am all over that. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't even let Sean Dyche get to the tunnel and he'd be gone. He'd be sacked on the sideline and I'd say to him, go out that exit there with the supporters, your bag will be waiting outside for you. I'm telling you now, he wouldn't even take the time to tunnel. He'd be walking up. He'd be walking up the family enclosure steps with the dads and the lads, walking out the church and waiting for his carrier bag of stuff out of his office. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I don't disagree about the fact that I think he might get 1 game under the Freakins, 1, and then that'll be it.
It depends when they come in, doesn't it? By all accounts, it looks like it's going to be done before the offices close. We're hoping so for the Christmas down. So what you're looking now, 3 weeks?
3, 4 weeks, yeah. Yeah,
I think 3 or 4 weeks. Could be next week, could be tomorrow. We don't know with the Premier League because we passed the FCA or FA, whatever it is, and we've passed the FA check. So I know it's a bit more stringent, we did say on here, but if you've passed them, you passed the Premier League one. Do they rush it up a bit now, looking at the decisions that we've already got? Possibly. I reckon you're looking at maximum 3 weeks until the Freakins own our football club.
And last thing to finish off on, a positive note, Just a little congratulations to our ladies, as always, in the Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. They always seem to win. They got a little bit fortunate, I must say. I don't know. It was an awful call by the referee. I mean, it was a yard outside the box, and she's given a penalty.
If that goes against you, mate, you're giving that referee a slap, aren't you? Do you know what I mean?
Shocking. But anyway, the ladies defended really well, held on to a 1-0 lead, and beat Liverpool in the Merseyside derby. Really positive. And then the gentlemen have just got to go and do it in 3 weeks' time. 7th of December, I think it is. And see if we can do it.
One question I want to throw at you, if anyone's still watching. Do you know if they get rid of Sean Dyche?
Mm-hmm.
Would you take a punt on Lee Carsley?
Do you want my answer?
Well, and you're the one doing the video with.
Yes.
You would?
Yes. And the reason why... So people may or may not have remembered this video, but you remember it certainly. Before he won the Euros or the Euros with the under-21s, or whatever what age group it was, last season, I saw him at St George's Park. There's a picture of it on Twitter. I think I put a picture of it in here. And I spoke about how amazing that experience was, because you have got the man that was, the next caretaker manager of England, potentially the next manager of England, giving some random guy, me, 20, 30, I don't know how long we were talking, 30, 40 minutes, say, talking about football, Everton, passion, players, his life. Remember scoring in the derby in 2004 against Liverpool, 2005, when we were in the Champions League, that when we qualified that season. He loved his time at Everton Football Club. He absolutely loved it. And he had a good relationship with the board, the players. He had a good relationship with the Everton coaching staff currently, because of the younger players that we had at the time. He's had Gordon at the time. He had Grantway. He's had Calvert-Lewin. He's had various players that have played for Everton during his time as an under-21 manager. He couldn't praise us more. And for me, he knows how to get the best out of young players. He knows how to develop and create those talents, them money makers. He knows how to give them the confidence to go and perform. But he's also got the bottle and the minerals to step up when it was needed. And he makes honest assessments, maybe a bit rash at times. He did it against Greece when he lost, when he made the absolute mistake of not playing a striker when we got done to Greece. He won 5 out of 6 games as an England manager. For me, if he is interested in Everton Football Club, then I absolutely interview him. People will say he's an international manager, Mike. He's not used to club football, blah, 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 blah. People have got to adapt. People have got to change.
Yeah,
for me, you give him a chance.
Whether Everton have got time on their hands to give him that time to adapt is another thing. But when you look at the young players that he brought into that England squad who haven't been given a chance, he had balls to do that. And he also, say what you want about Harry Kane, you look at his numbers. And for me, to drop Harry Kane, whether he was dropped or whether he wanted to give somebody else a go, because you're looking at Harry Kane now, and the next big tournament is the Euros. Am I right in saying?
2006 World Cup, Penny.
The World Cup. Harry Kane's not going to be playing regular for England then in 2026. So whether he dropped him or whether he wanted to have a look at other players, but he made that rash decision. And I heard an interview he done after the game the other day, and he said for a couple of weeks it was still on his head of the mistake he made against Greece. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Now, that was in the back of his mind, but he still won 5 out of 6. So he stepped up from the under-21s to the England national team, probably one of the biggest jobs in international football. And you can look at the opposition we played. it makes no difference. International football is a big step up, and he won 5 out of 6. So, as you quite rightly say, I'd have no problem giving him an interview. I think he was in the running for the job full time, man. I actually think he talked himself out of it by saying about going back to the under-21s. I think he actually talked himself out of being interviewed for the job full time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting, but we need to see what happens with the current manager first. I can't even bring myself to say his name anymore. It'd be interesting to see what happens with him when the Freakins come in. Do the Freakins take a point on someone as inexperienced in the Premier League as Lee Carsey? Possibly not. I think they're going to go for someone with their experience, and for me, that man is Jose Mourinho for a couple of years.
Horsey move there. Literally just sticking them on the table and nailing them to the thing, haven't you? You've got them out. Nailed them down. It's all on the table. I don't know who they'll appoint, if I'm being honest. And the reason why is because they've gone all different ways at Roma. They've got experience, and they've got club legends. Then they went with this guy, and then they sacked him. So I don't know.
Now we've got Claudio again.
Yeah, so I don't know. But what I do know is that if you've stayed until 41 minutes and 25 seconds, you need to hit the like and subscribe. You need to hit that bell notification, and you need to join us on Blue Sky, because we're not just on Twitter now, we're on Blue Sky. So make sure you get over on that, and you follow Blue Boys Network. But guys, as always, it's been a pleasure. There will be a match preview this week. Yeah, we are back. Big game. Big game.
Win. 12 games. I think it's the 12th league game of the season, and we're saying already it's a must-win game. This is massive. This game on Saturday is massive, and anything less than 3 points, then the calls for Dyche are going to get louder and louder and louder.
Guys, see you soon. Up the toughies.